Okay. Well, welcome everyone to the launch of the Digital Co-Production Oracle. I'm Rafi Haywood, by the way, one of the assistant directors of the Global Systems Institute. And yeah, super happy to be introducing Hannah Mumby and Ernesto Schwartz, who basically, well, Hannah created the Oracle, and she's going to tell us about how she made it, how well Ernesto and her came up with it and created it, and how they made it, and how it ended up being online. And Ernesto is also going to give us some provocations, I'm told, about co-production. Ernesto is also one of our assistant directors at the GSI, and he's all about basically getting people from different disciplines and different backgrounds to work together. And that's really the goal of this Oracle, is for us to basically get together and get to maybe speak a similar language and get on the same page and move forwards together to solve big issues like climate change, and also to move forward in our own research projects um, and whatever we do day to day. So yes, so Hannah did this work while she was an artist in residence back in 2022 at the Global Systems Institute, and now she's just based down the road in Topsham. And yeah, I'm gonna hand it over to you, Ernesto. Take it away with your provocations. Provoke us.
All right. Hi. Hello, everyone. I'm very glad you're around. So it's going to be a very intimate workshop. I was hoping we could have a larger group so I can really make a provocation to lots of different stakeholders. So the first thing that I wanted to speak about is co-production as a governance issue, right? Like one of the things these cards talk about that I think is brilliant is the power games and the power dynamics that happen when we are producing things together. So the whole deck is designed not to shy away from these power dynamics. And if you read the leaflet, I have a small text there about basically making a world together. So the way in which I think about co-production is we're always co-producing the world. We don't do this alone. The I don't know, I'm there. It was stop for a second. Yes?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, you're
So
still
it's
here.
it's my internet maybe. Um, okay, perfect. So the whole point that I want to talk about is governance. So one of the things that the Oracle does brilliantly is to spell out what are the dynamics when you are doing a project together, the sort of blind spots that some of us working with communities that are not academic tend to forget. But also, if you see, there's a lot of cheekiness in the Oracle, right? It talks about the colonizer, it talks about the marketplace, it talks about the burden. So it was born of this dialogue with GSI members, but also from experiences and curating those experiences in some archetypes, which are great to work. I've used it in lots of different moments with projects in Los Andes in Chile, when I'm working with communities facing water scarcity and the loss of glaciers. But I have also used it for urban mobility and conflicts in Mexico City. And it's always great because it allows us to speak freely about issues someone might be too shy to speak about, right? I even use this in my dinner party in my Christmas with my Mexican family. Uh, and it was a blast. This is the sort of thing you need to do after your dinner parties. My father-in-law was incredibly uncomfortable. He had to speak about his own feelings, how he dealt with that. Uh, so I urge you to use it with care, though, because these are powerful objects. They seem to be just very naive cards, but they are not. They really aren't. And I love to see this digital online version, because then you can also have these in a more personal way. Like it can become this oracle. And when I tried the webpage for the first time, it reminded me my teenage years. In those days, the internet was a very new thing. So if you wanted to ask uh, tarot things, so I love digital tarots in those days, and you could have all these different collections of different artists. You could get into a web page, and they would give you a reading. And I used to love doing that. It was a way for me actually to think about my essays. Um, And I also use that. I have to say I'm very lax with my use of the co-production oracle. So I also use it with my students when they have a creative block and they want to think about the world and, for instance, AI and climate change, AI and justice. AI, I mean artificial intelligence. So it's a lovely piece, but I think it's one thing. The provocation is like what we think about co-production and what these cards are aimed to doing, and it's about talking about the uncomfortable spaces, those things that we want to keep outside of the conversation, and they're designed to make those uncomfortable conversations be part of the design. Because one of the things we want to do in co-production in Exeter that is beyond the window dressing co-production that is just sitting people around the table is actually to engage with those thorny issues. So if it becomes awkward, uncomfortable, then it's happening. That's what should happen. Co-production is actually emerging in that field. For those of us that do social science, of course, we are kind of obsessed with power dynamics, right? So it doesn't come as news. But one of the things we talked since the very early days, Hannah and I, is that we wanted to do something that was not like a guideline or a handbook, but was something that you could use, because co-production is also about practice, about doing things together, right? Most of the things in the world, you don't learn them just by theorizing about them in abstract spaces. Some of things you do, right? I've never been to the origin of the universe, right? I cannot go and test the Big Bang, so I need to simulate it. But some other things, we can just engage with them directly. And this is why the cards are designed that way. And finally, one of the things that people tend to say when they think about co-production, and I sort of disagree with profoundly, is that co-production is about democracy, right? We tend to think that co-production is like, oh, this is the best thing in the world. It's like apple pie and motherhood, and then it's going to bring all the good things and it's going to make this society more democratic. But actually, this is about aristocracy. By that, I mean something very different from having an old man owning lots of land and calling himself count or viscount or whatever. I'm talking about the knowledge that we already consider to be rich enough to come together to produce the world. So most of the co-production practices we do across the world are aristocratic in the sense that even when we speak with people that are vulnerable, are lacking resources, we think that their knowledge is the best knowledge to engage with a problem. Okay, so I want you to think of this set of cards and the co-production we want to talk about as a thorny object that doesn't simply want to reproduce a flat notion of democracy, but wants to deal with the vulnerabilities and power dynamics that shape our world today. And in that sense, they're a tool for an aristocratic engagement. And by that, I don't mean just giving more power to the powerful. I mean completely the opposite, right? Speak with the vulnerable, speak with the people that we might not hear their voices, but also do something about that. It's not just about speaking. So it's not just about bringing people to the table, but actually doing things with them. And I know this comes as a very tall order for people like us in academia because we are completely stretched, right? And most of the things we do have to do with incentives and working our way through the academic system and getting the promotions or whatever and the papers out. But think of this as a little space in which you can find those tensions and enjoy them and work with them. And that's it. So thanks a lot for your time. I let Hannah explain the
Uh,
whole enchilada to you.
the whole enchilada. Thanks
Yes.
so much, Alistair. That was a really great provocation. So my name's Hannah Mumby. I'm an artist. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what the co-production oracle is, how it came into being, and then I'm going to introduce you to the digital co-production oracle that we're launching today and that I'm going to invite you to interact with in this session. So I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, hopefully you can see this. So today we're talking about the digital co-production oracle. So I'm an artist and creative facilitator, and my job is to create artwork that helps people find new perspectives on their ideas. So I do a lot of research. I do a lot of work with academics and researchers to explore creative ways to share their research. I'm trained as an illustrator, so often that might look like making a set of images or kind of interactive creative experiences to sort of share and help people engage with the kind of ideas within research. And in 2022, which feels like a long time ago now, I worked as an artist in residence with the GSI to develop the co-production oracle, which is a deck of cards. And I'm going to talk you through what that deck of cards is and how it became the digital co-production oracle, which is what we're going to play with today. So we've only got till 4, which isn't very long, but I'm going to try and get as much kind of excitement out of that hour as possible. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the co-production oracle and some principles that are embedded within it. I'm going to give you a short demo of how to use the digital version, and then I'm going to send you off as individuals to go and use it and test it out. So this is its official launch, but we hope to be able to follow up with a Spanish language version at some point in the future. And after today's session, you'll receive a follow-up email with the link to the Oracle and further information to support you in using it, as well as possibly some links to other GSI events that are coming up. So just to follow on from Ernesto's provocation, what is co-production? Co-production essentially is an approach to working together in equal partnership and for equal benefit, although that might be an oversimplification. But it's bringing together people who have different capabilities, different kinds of knowledge and experience, maybe access to different networks, and all of these people working together and identifying a problem and finding a useful solution. So it's all about participants taking ownership and being a part of identifying the problem and the solution finding. So that means not just critiquing something and sitting back and folding their arms, but being involved in generating solutions, which will, of course, require making compromises. And co-production can take place throughout a project. So it might encompass some of the following things: identifying research questions or writing funding bids, setting priorities and designing how something should work, project governance, co-delivery of project activities, communicating key findings, and involvement in sharing and exchanging different types of knowledge. And that's a really important one. It could be lots of other things as well. These are just some aspects to think about. So it can be seen, or you might hear it talked about, as a valid method for doing research, policy, or service development. But I like to think of it as an intervention, so an act designed to change or influence or perhaps disrupt something in its own right. It's a bit of a buzzword at the moment, co-production, so you might hear people talk about it as the kind of gold standard of participatory research and practice. But something that's really important to remember with co-production is that it involves radical power sharing. So that means an acknowledgement of imbalances in power, perhaps in a project that you're working on, and taking an active and explicit decision to try and address and equalize those power relations. So what this might look like in practice could be establishing ground rules, committing to continuous dialogue, joint ownership of key decisions, a commitment to building relationships, building in opportunities for personal growth and development, crucially, flexibility, continuous reflection, and then evaluating the impact of co-producing research and understanding what its value is and how to share that. Oh, good. So that means we've understood what co-production is. We've got a nice, easy recipe. You can all go home now and do it perfectly forever. But in reality, it's actually not as straightforward as that. So a lot of projects that call themselves co-production might not actually be engaging with some of its fundamental principles. So you might find that participants do a lot of sitting in meetings, but not really have much influence. Or people may show up to projects and contribute, but do those contributions lead to real change in a project? So some of the things we should be asking are, who gets to make the decisions about what ideas are taken forward? How are we exercising control over people who are involved? Are we meaningfully involving people, or just giving the illusion that people have been involved? Are we being too selective about recruiting amenable participants who don't rock the boat too much? And are we acknowledging the imbalances in power in our work? And are we willing to make real changes to share that power? So in reality, it's always a very difficult, thorny process. And this difficulty and this messiness is what prompted Ernesto and I to make a tool that is interactive rather than a sort of neat recipe or a checklist that you can follow to do co-production well. So we decided to make the co-production oracle, which is a deck of 30 cards. It was co-created with the GSI. It's a tool to help people reflect on situations and dynamics that might arise in co-production. And each card features a co-production archetype illustration. And each card links to a prompt in a booklet that challenges you to think and reflect on your project or your situation. So here's a lovely picture of Ernesto. This is how we made them. So I worked with Ernesto to examine some data from interviews that I conducted with members of the GSI about co-production. So these were sort of semi-structured interviews. I essentially asked people from a wide variety of disciplines what co-production meant to them. So we gathered that data and we added to it from our own experience of using and researching co-production. And then we translated the themes from those interviews into 30 archetypes. And these are ways of focusing on some of the issues and using symbolic metaphorical images to bring them to life. And for each archetype, we wrote a provocative prompt relating to that issue. And we checked and refined that text so that it would hopefully be accessible to a broader audience beyond academia. So here are some examples of cards from the deck that you might pull if you're using it. So if you pulled the gardener card, you'd be asked to think about the following. You need to feed the soil for the plants to thrive. How can you cultivate this for the long term? What can be added? What can be nurtured to build strong roots? If you pulled the enlightenment card, it would say, is knowledge and learning only flowing in one direction? How might your expertise be flattening someone else's? Are you assuming that once someone agrees with you that things will change for the better? So the way this card deck works is that you think of a question or an issue that you'd like a new perspective on, ideally relating to co-production or collaboration or working with others, but also could be about your family Christmas situation if you're Ernesto. And you want to shuffle the deck and randomly draw up to 3 cards, one at a time. Once you've pulled a card, you can look in the booklet and read the prompt associated with that card. And then that prompt is just a starting point for you to reflect and follow a trail of thought to see what it makes you think of. Once you've done that, you can pull another card. So the prompts can be interpreted various ways. They're a bit like riddles, and they invite you to ask questions about the issue at hand and the role that you play so that you can find a new perspective. And the aim isn't to find a neat solution to a problem, but more to open up our understanding of the issue and become more aware of its complexity. So the prompts from the cards can be the beginning of a conversation or thought process. Sometimes they may be relevant, spookily relevant occasionally. Sometimes they might seem totally left field and throw you a curveball, but that can be quite helpful sometimes in thinking about blind spots. And the cards can be used by individuals or in pairs or in groups. And if you have a physical copy of the deck, there's a booklet with instructions on how to use them. But today we're going to try the online version. And this is what it looks like. And I think it's time for a demo. So I'm just going to stop sharing my screen. And then I'm going to find the Oracle and share my screen again. If I can find Zoom. Okay. Right. Okay, let me know if you can see this.
Yep.
Okay.
Looks good.
So here, we have the digital co-production Oracle, and I'm ready to begin. So I'm going to click the begin button. And this is where my Google Chrome decides to be unresponsive. Hang on. Okay, so hopefully this is going to work. Tell me if I freeze. So when you visit the co-production Oracle site, it will give you a set of instructions, basic steps for how to use the Oracle. So it's some of what I've just said in terms of how you think about a question, how you can shuffle the deck and choose a card and read the prompt revealed and reflect on it. But the key thing, there's some key differences with the digital version. Obviously, it's not a tactile object, so some of the shuffling is going to happen on screen, and you are able to export and sort of make notes and export things as you go through. So I'm just going to go in and demonstrate. So here, once you have a question in mind, you can type it in the box. I'm just going to think of one now that relates to some work that I've been doing, which is, how do I work better with young people? And then when you're ready and you're happy with your question, you can click shuffle. And this is what happens next. Cards will appear in front of you. And I appreciate, Ernesto, that this does have kind of old school feelings about it, which I liked. I liked what you said about that. So here are some cards. There are 30 cards in the deck, but it will sort of randomly choose a selection that's sort of sitting behind this. So it's not just 6 cards, but you can click on whichever one you like. So I'm going to click on this card here. The cowboy. Okay. So I scroll down and the cowboy prompt is going to say to me, are you riding a wild horse through a land where there are no rules? Who does the land belong to and who or what is being exploited? Now, I might sort of spend a moment thinking about that provocation and I can then add some notes in the box underneath. So I'm going to write, this makes me think about the current work I'm doing. Obviously, you're going to have a much more insightful comment to make than that, but just for the purposes of functionality, I'm going to put a comment in there. You can go back and click pull another card using this red star, and it will let you pull up to 3 different cards. And then when you're ready and you're finished, you can click the finish button. And you can also click to view a summary of what notes you've made under each card, and it tells you your question at the top. And then if you want to be extra fancy, you can click the export button and the website will gather together your question, the cards you pulled, and the notes that you wrote for each card, and it will assemble that into a PDF, which will download from your browser. I'm not going to do that now because that won't be very visually interesting for you, but just so that you know, you can do that once you've finished, and it will gather all your notes together. So that's a very quick whistle-stop tour of how to use the site. And what I'm going to ask you to do next is kind of a self-led activity. So if I share my screen again, I'm going to ask you to go and use that digital Oracle site individually now, but we're going to be asking the same question. So everyone's going to go off. I'll put links in the chat so that you can find the Oracle site. And I want you to go through the process I just went through, but I want you to ask this specific question. And the question is, what do we need to think about more when we collaborate? You might want to write that question down now so you remember it, but I will also put it in the chat. So pop that question into the Oracle, see what cards you are faced with, see what cards come out of the deck, write some notes down as you go. You've got 10 minutes, so you might be able to pull up to 3 cards. You might just want to focus on 1 or 2. And then export your results at the end or make notes of them as you go. And then once we've had 10 minutes of each sort of doing this process, going through using this question, I'm going to invite you to sort of come back in and share what you have been provoked to think about using a Padlet. I don't know if you've used Padlet before, but it's kind of like an online, almost like a sort of pin board that I'll get you to sort of write some of your reflections on, and then we can talk about them together. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and I'm going to first of all put a link to the Oracle in the chat for you. There you go. And I'm going to put a copy of that question as well, if I can find it. So the question is, what do we need to think about more when we collaborate? So it's now about 3:30. Is everyone happy with those instructions and happy to go off on your individual missions and ask that question to the Oracle for the next 10 minutes or so, making some notes as you go?
I have a 4 or 4 not found on the link. I don't know if
Oh,
it's
do you?
myself.
Okay, wait, let me just double check I've given you the right link. Hang on.
Yeah, I just I had the same thing and I deleted the word begin at the end of the link and it worked.
That's
So
because I did it after I did the demo to you. Let me just put try this one.
I've got it. I've just deleted the begin as well. Thank you.
That's me being silly. Sorry about that. Hopefully that's working for everyone.
Yeah.
Okay, so best of luck. Good luck in your mission with the Oracle. I look forward to hearing what it provokes you to think about, and I will I'll come and wave at you at in about 10 minutes time, and then I'll give you the next set of instructions. But please just jump in if you have any issues or you need any help from me. I'll just be here throughout that time.
See you later. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Ernesto. See you soon.
Thanks. Looks super cool. I love the webpage and everything. The
Oh,
PDF
thanks for all your
report.
help. It's great.
Yeah. Okay. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye. Yeah, I'm really sorry I have to run as well. I'm gutted. My next meeting is definitely not as exciting as this.
Oh, don't worry, Matthew. I'm really glad you came, and I'll see you soon.
Yeah, see you soon. I'm really glad I've got the link. Yay. Take care. Enjoy, everyone.
Okay, so I've just pressed the record button again as we go into the next stage of the activity. So hopefully you've had a chance to get some way through using the digital oracle with our question. What I'd like to now invite you to do is to use the Padlet link I've just put in the chat and add or share for us some of the things that you were prompted to think about in relation to this question as you drew cards from the oracle deck. So either, if you want to, you can sort of write exactly what cards you pulled and what that made you think of, or if you just had some general reflections about this question of collaboration and how to do it well, or what we should be thinking about more, please just also add reflections into the Padlet as well. I'm going to give you 5 minutes to do that. So until 1:45, to add as many reflections as you like that you were prompted to think about in relation to this question. Let me know if you have any issues with that link. I'm just going to pause the recording again while we're doing that, and then I'll restart it again for anyone watching afterwards who wants to hear our discussion about these things. Okay, so hopefully everyone's added their thoughts to the Padlet. What we're going to do now, you may have noticed that on the cards in the Padlet, there are little hearts at the bottom. And I'm going to invite you now to imagine that you have 3 votes. So 3 votes each. And each vote is a click of a heart. And what I'd like you to do is look at the cards that have been added to the Padlet and put your 3 votes on the things that you find most interesting or most resonate with you. You can do 3 votes however you like. So if there's something that you feel really strongly about, you can put all 3 hearts on one, or if you want to spread them out, that's fine. You can also vote on your own. I think you can put more than 1 heart on one. It might undo it. Anyway, you have up to 3. Spread them out and just put hearts on things that resonate with you or that you find really interesting. And then we're just going to see which ones kind of surface as the most sort of relatable issues with co-production, and we'll sort of talk about that at the end of the session. Helen, I know that you can't do this, so if you're all right to sort of hang tight and just sort of hold on a few minutes, I will speak out the most popular voted ones anyway, so hopefully you'll get to hear them on the Zoom.
Great, thank you.
And I make it 3:48 now. So if we take about 2 or 3 minutes and you just go through and vote for your favorites, and then I will see which ones come out as the most beloved ones on the Padlet, and then we'll discuss them. Hi Elle, just saw your message. So what we're doing with the Padlet now is you might see on each Padlet post at the bottom there's a little heart with a number next to it. And what I'd like you to do is have a read of everything on the Padlet and put a heart on anything that you find particularly interesting or that you resonate with the most. And you can put up to 3 hearts across the Padlet. I hope that makes sense. Okay, just going to give you 1 more minute. So if there's anything else that you want to put a heart on that resonated with you or that you find interesting, do it now, and then we'll see which come out top. Okay, stop there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort the Padlet by order of the most hearted. So I can figure out how to do that. Sort by likes. There we go. Okay, so it looks like the Metamorphosis is the most sort of resonant card. I'm actually going to share my screen so that anyone who can't see the Padlet or anyone who is watching this on a recording can see what people have written here. So the Metamorphosis, the person who has put this post up said, how do we create space that encourages people to be open to being changed, break down barriers, silos, political maneuvering, create space, build relationships and trust, slow the process? Lots of thoughts in there. Would anybody who put a heart on this one like to unmute and just sort of say why they found this interesting or kind of any issues that they've encountered relating to this when you're collaborating? Feel free. I can't sort of see the gallery view very well, so feel free to just unmute and speak some thoughts into the room.
I think the working in silos, having worked both for the government and for education, within education, that breaking down of silos is really dependent on if you find a good set of allies and if you're able to extend the conversation of open minds towards something where something can be done about shared opinions, best practice, working with others. So it has to have like an empowering aspect of it in order for it to be successful. Otherwise it can essentially just be a kind of a release to talk about frustrations, whereby nothing gets done. So there does need to just be that, to transform, for this to be a transformative space, there needs to be power and action. And I think it's all good and well to sort of build a relationship, build a trust, I don't always agree about slowing the process. My main issue is this progress. The processes are too slow, but I appreciate that we need to accept some small wins sometimes. That's, you know, but yeah, I think it's a really good one, and I like the name of the card as well.
Thanks so much, Elle. I think that was really nicely put. A lot of different factors to sort of support this type of change that are needed. Would anybody else like to kind of reflect on what Els just said, or add any other thoughts about the metamorphosis? Or if not, I might move on to another card, but just hear some space for anyone else to speak about the metamorphosis idea. I'm going to interpret that silence as let's move on to the next card. So there's a joint next favourite between the promise and the squeeze. So I'm going to talk about the promise first, and we may not have time to come on to the squeeze. The promise post on Padlet says, this puts me in mind of how I might facilitate collaboration in a more transparent way. And in my own experience of this as a participant of a collaborative project, workshop, or engagement activity, something I want to think about is managing expectations, not as a gateholder, but as a person who wants to be on a level with others, honest about what is within my power, and forthcoming with the outcomes of collaborative working. Interesting. So I wonder if anybody can speak to this, maybe the person that wrote that comment or anyone who resonated with this particularly. Feel free to unmute yourselves and speak.
I just spoke about the other one, which I didn't write, and I wrote this one. So if there's only one other person who liked it, and because I taught during lockdown, I will happily fill the void because it's terrible, like performing as a comedian to a silent audience. That's a piece of fine art, contemporary work in itself. I've actually seen that project roll out. Does anyone else not want to go? Because my voice is rubbish at the minute.
This is like, please, you don't have to have anything particularly interesting to say. Just curious to see if anyone resonates with these ideas of how to facilitate collaboration in a more transparent way. Like, what does that mean?
If someone else doesn't want to speak, I'll just say a quick one. I'm currently facilitating these events that are essentially they're like we don't have funding for this, so we're giving you this instead. And as part of that, it's almost like everyone's patting themselves on the back. And I, as a kind of highly critical person, can see that I really want to make the most out of it. So what I've done is, as part of this honest approach to things, is to talk about, as a bare minimum, what is the expectation and the outcome of this? And that might be tea and biscuits, and we'll pay for the venue, and you've got a space to vent. But ideally, it's to agitate people to get together and collaborate with what's at their disposal, not to give them an additional bumper, but more a meeting space, a time to think and reflect, to work together, kind of like working with students as well, when you say, right, okay, self-directed study or what have you, so that's something. I'm not trying to overpromise anything, but I do want to sort of manage expectations. So that's and because I think everyone's being shortchanged because of all the cuts, I'm breaking myself trying to get extra stuff thrown in for free, and throw funding people's way. But in reality, it might just be tea, biscuits, a space to talk. That might be what it is. So that is, something.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, Elle, because it's sort of like you're saying, okay, you need to be clear about what you can actually give people. But, even if you might want to encourage them to think about how to use that space, like what you can actually give them, you need to manage expectations about the limits of what that might be, but still sort of holding some sense of possibility to encourage people to, make use of it, I suppose. Well, that was really interesting in what you said.
Cheers.
I also liked the word agitate that you used there, where it's sort of like clarity, but also a bit of agitation to get people to sort of energize.
Yeah, I think that it's like it's an interesting word because people are often agitated, but the idea of that word is that it results in change. So to add to stir something up, to kind of some alchemy to come out of this. But I think because I've got an arts background, I'm kind of Doyle stuff like that. But I wish that people would do more about the things that frustrate them, because there's strength in numbers, and there's power in unity, even if it's with diverse voice and not a clear one, focal voice, because that's not how the world works and everyone's got a different opinion. I liked when it was brought up elsewhere. I can't remember what it was. Was it something like it might have been in Ernesto's thing where he talked about being, I think he said something about being, I wrote it down, working with communities and not being frightened of having the uncomfortable conversations and the people who might stir the pot a little bit. Like, why are you so frightened? Like, it's like just my opinion, man. Like I just think people need to be more open about going, yeah, that's like be open to be vulnerable, be open to be fallible, and yeah, I think that would go a long way.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, and I think you've summed that up really well, and that's a lot of the kind of ethos or inspiration behind this card deck really is to sort of make a bit of trouble and agitate people and help people have difficult conversations that often don't have space to be facilitated within projects that have a lot of restrictions or a lot of preconceived ideas about how things should go, or different sort of agendas that are at play. Sometimes you do just need space to talk and reflect on what's challenging, what's difficult, and kind of what's at stake as well for individuals who are involved. So I'm aware of time. Just going to stop sharing my screen there. And I want to thank you all for showing up and for contributing and giving it a go and trying out the card deck. It's been a sort of a really interesting co-produced process making this card deck, and it's now sort of being used in lots of different contexts. I was really fascinated to hear about Ernesto talking about using it internationally in projects in South America. And if you do end up using this digital version, please let me know how you get on with it. I'm going to be sending you a follow-up email probably sometime later this week with a link to the digital oracle, a link to this Padlet, and any follow-up information or supporting information, as well as my slides to kind of help you if you want to go ahead and use it out in the world with people. But apart from that, thank you so much for coming along. And on behalf of the GSI as well, I know that they've got some really exciting events coming up. So hopefully I'll have a chance to promote some of the other workshops and events that they're running in that follow-up email as well. So please keep an eye out for that. And keep in touch. Thanks everyone for coming.
Thank you very much, Hannah. That was a very enjoyable hour out of my day. Otherwise,
Really pleased to hear that. Thank you.
Thank
Nice
you.
to meet you.
Bye.
See you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.